It's day 2 in the second test in Barbados, and it's now time for Ask George. Ben Pasler asks, is Joe Root now England's best ever across formats?
He'd be right up there. I suppose he's not in the T20 team, is he, at the moment? Although perhaps he should be. So maybe would KP have the edge there if you're including that format? But I don't think that really matters. I mean, he is, he's proved himself time and time again. He's obviously magnificent.
Frank Morrish asks, it's a flat wicket and he had a middling Ashes, but is Joe Root the best batter of his generation, including, Kohli, Smith, Williamson, etc.?
Oh, wow. I don't know. Do you need to choose? Do you need to pick one? I mean, I don't. He's brilliant. I don't know that he was the best batter out there today. Ben Stokes was pretty good, wasn't he? I don't think you need to choose. He's right up there with them. I mean, if you say someone's as good as Virat Kohli, that's pretty magnificent, isn't it? Or Steve Smith. But, they play in very different conditions a lot of the time. Joe's average is probably a wee bit lower because he played in terribly difficult conditions in England. But equally, he hasn't made that century in Australia, which would be a huge tick in his box. But he's undoubtedly a great player, and there's lots more to come with him. He's sort of at his peak right now, isn't he?
An important question from Matthew Lee: who in the England camp could drink the most pints of Guinness?
Johnny Best, I reckon. Although maybe Ollie Robinson looks as if he has. But I'm going to say Johnny Bairstow.
How many for Bairstow?
I don't know, but I mean, he's old school that way, isn't he?
Do you feel that lifeless wickets like these in the Caribbean will hasten the demise of Test cricket? Presumably, Billy Hunt, who asked the question, means in the West Indies.
Yeah, but I mean, it happens everywhere, and I'm not sure it was the intention. I mean, certainly Cricket West Indies didn't want this wicket. Certainly, the West Indies team didn't want this wicket. Whether the Barbados Cricket Association did it on purpose or they heard, I'm not completely sure. I don't think it's a great wicket. I mean, and it may well deteriorate, and there may well be a result, but I don't think that makes it all okay. Yeah, I do think we've got to be really careful with the wickets, and that dull wickets in general are a huge danger. I think they're the biggest danger to the game. I think they're more dangerous than match fixing or drugs or anything like that. So I sort of agree with him, but I mean, we did still have a very entertaining day's cricket today, so maybe we shouldn't be so harsh. But yeah, I basically agree with what you're asking. Yeah.
You made the observation yesterday that perhaps profits are being put ahead of entertaining cricket. Which one hastens the demise of Test cricket in this region more? The finances or the pitches?
Well, but you can't take these short-term decisions, because what Cricket West Indies wanted is to have quick wickets and lively wickets, so that they had attracted Test cricket to sell to the broadcasters as much as anything else. I just think that not many people will sit through what happened in Antigua terribly often, even though we did have quite a fun finish. I think it's a bit exploitative. I think they take the Barmy Army for granted everywhere in the world, and I think we're in a bit of an unusual situation right now, and there's a lot of pent-up demand. People haven't been away for a long time. They haven't watched cricket abroad for a long time. They're still obviously lovely players. And so people have come in huge numbers, and they're making the most of it. I mean, it was a brilliant atmosphere today. It was really, really lovely. But I think it's very important not to take that for granted. And again and again, I'm going to say, you've got to keep the wickets lively. I mean, probably attention spans have changed anyway, and it's already sort of anachronistic to have a 5-day game. We could have a draw at the end of it up to a point. So let's just be a little bit aware of that and ensure that the pitches create an equal balance between bat and ball. And we haven't had that so far. Now, they might deteriorate. That won't make it a good pitch, because it will mean the toss was too important. You know what I'm saying. And as I said yesterday, just because you see a rock fall, it doesn't make 1,000 years of erosion entertaining.
Steve Wint asks, who do you think will be the new chairman of selectors and England coach? I guess a sort of an extension of that question is that after the departure of the individual whose brainchild was getting rid of the chairman of selectors and putting the England coach position together, is that a structure that's returning, and who's filling those berths, do you think?
Right. So right now we don't have that role, chairman of selectors. I suspect that something similar, though called a different name, may well return. It depends who the MD is, the replacement for Ashley Giles. We hear that Ed Smith is favourite. There are other candidates, Mike Hasten, Claire Connor, I think, could do both roles easily. All sorts of people could do it. I think there's a fair chance that they'll split the coaching, so there'll be a white ball coach and a red ball coach who will answer to the director of cricket. And so I'd say, to answer the question, Ed Smith, managing director, James Taylor for selector, Collie for white ball coach, not sure about red ball coach.
Are we approaching a period where Ed Smith is potentially going to be appointing his de facto replacement?
What do you mean? As selector, yeah. Yeah, amazing, doesn't it?
Chimney asks, do you think there should be more tests for teams like Ireland and to get them into the World Test Championship cycle?
Well, sure they should, but you have to be. There are all sorts of things going on there. Personally, I don't love the World Test Championship. I would prefer promotion and relegation. I think that would put peril into the mix, and I think that's a brilliant thing. But obviously teams are reluctant to vote for that. But I think that would give real relevance. I don't know how many people are that interested in the World Test Championship. It's not something that's talked about in pubs and bars and around cricket grounds, really, it seems to me. So that's the way I would go. But you have to be realistic when you call for this stuff and understand that it costs a lot of money to do it. And having uncompetitive tests wouldn't do anyone any favours. So there are all sorts of things that have to fall into place. The broad answer is I completely agree with you. We need to do more. But just say, having a test where, it could be quite difficult for Ireland to sell their rights depending on who they're playing against. But I'd like to see England do more.
Is the fear
also, I think it would be. I think a promotion and relegation would be fun. I think there should be less cricket, less Test cricket, certainly, and less international cricket, I should say. And promotion and relegation in Test cricket would work really quite well.
Is the fear with relegation that if a West Indies or a Bangladesh get relegated and they're not playing regular tests against say India, South Africa, England, Australia, etc., that they lose a bit of interest in this level of the game, and something that could perhaps be prevented happens a bit sooner than we'd like?
Well, I don't see a lot of evidence of that being something that's happening anyway. No, I think the real problem, always conclude money and then work out why money is the answer. So the problem is that if England, say, let's be honest, are much more likely to be relegated, they'll bottom. If England got relegated, they might be in a position where their broadcast rights were worth less. Could they still be guaranteed the long series against India and Australia, which seem to come around every year? They basically play one or other all the time. And of course there's a way around that. But, I think these 5 test series are too long anyway. Certainly 5 test series in India are ludicrously far too long because they're very uncompetitive. And I think they're going to damage that brand anyway. So I would do things very differently. There are obviously complications in whatever you choose, but I would definitely go that way. And I think the drama of it, England being relegated would be painful and stuff, but actually it would be great TV drama as they fought against it or got promoted afterwards. All these bad things could be good things, couldn't they? But you have to take some long-term decisions, and they won't because everyone looks short-term. And not least because we now have a bonus culture in cricket, which is incredibly unhelpful. So people get paid bonuses for hitting their short-term goals, which bring long-term pain to the game. And, the ECB guys, I believe, or ECB people have recently had their bonuses. And that's money that could have been better spent, ensuring that every kid in the country didn't have to pay for kit and coaching when they reach county setup. You just have to have a bit of imagination, a long-term view, rather than always having a short-term economic target.